Okay, we are starting in Daniel this evening, Daniel chapter 12. And again, Daniel's wrapping up his conversation, or Gabriel's wrapping up his conversation with Daniel. And I just kind of want to use this to point something out, and then we'll go through the notes, look at a few charts, and then we're going to compare some things from Matthew and Luke and 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. And we've done this before. And if you have a question or something, please feel free to say something about that. Hey, we got some guests coming in. All right. Anyway, chapter 12. Just chapter 12, verse 1. At that time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise, and there will be a time of distress such as not happened from the beginning of the nations until then. Now, that's interesting. There'll be a time of distress that hasn't happened since the time of the nations. It doesn't say there'll be a time of distress unlike anything that's ever happened, because if you say there's going to be a time of distress unlike anything that's happened, you'd have to, as a Bible student, say, well, what about the flood? The flood of Noah was a pretty serious time of distress. I mean, 8 people survived and a handful of animals. So notice what it says right here. This stays in biblical context. It says there will be a time of distress such as has not happened from the beginning of nations. And remember, after the flood, Noah came off, and then the people gathered around the plains of Mesopotamia, and the Tower of Babel was built, and then God scattered them into their own languages. They all formed their own cultures, and then the nations were formed out of that. So right before the time of Abraham, between Noah and the time of Abraham, you have the forming of nations. And so this would not include that, but since the time of Genesis and the forming of the nations, there's never been a time like this on the earth. You just kind of keep that in mind. It's kind of interesting, kind of clarifies that. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitude.